Hi, this is Ian Wright, and I'm going to talk a little bit today about why it's so fabulous and so important to massage your baby from the very beginning. And we could talk about this for a long time, but I'm just going to give you a little kind of introduction into it and why we should all be doing this every day with our babies and how it can actually help with a variety of things, including brain development, bonding, etc., etc. My children I have a 17-year-old and 15-year-old twins, and they were just talking to me last weekend about this time that they remember when they were very young children and babies, which we called massagey moos time, which was massage time. And the interesting thing talking to them is they have a very strong memory of it, and they were very, very young as a very nice time. And it was wonderful to kind of get that feedback, and it just made me think we should talk about it, because I spend a lot of time working with and treating children and mothers and parents, and I just wanted to talk about baby massage for a minute. I mean, baby massage is culturally based in the history of lots, especially in tribal cultures throughout the world. There's a strong history of this in many, many different cultures, not just single cultures. Certain cultures spend a lot of time massaging babies' heads to reduce the tension from the birth, for example. And massage has been shown, actually, there's evidence that it can have a lot of wide-ranging effects on developing baby. The basic, simple ones is it can calm down the baby, can stop them crying. It can be helpful in windiness and colickiness and constipation. I'll talk about these in slightly more detail as we go. It can help them sleep. With my children, you give them a massage after their kind of 6, 7 p.m. bath, and that would wind them down, slow, rhythmic time, and settle them down. You know, the lights were low, maybe we'd have candles, just gentle light, slow, rhythmic massage would set them up for going to bed. Other things it can be helpful with is helping with nasal congestion, skin, eczema, etc., etc. It's really important in terms of bonding. So when you're massaging with your baby, you're smiling, you're looking into the baby's eyes, which stimulates a hormone, and the touch does, called oxytocin. Now, oxytocin has been known for a long time as the kind of love hormone. It has a variety of physiological effects on our body, which are quite deep. For example, it increases certain social behaviors like bonding. It decreases anxiety physiologically. It increases in mothers their natural behavioral, their natural maternal instinct gets stimulated by oxytocin. Oxytocin is stimulated in childbirth and also in the letdown reflex in breastfeeding. And it's stimulated actually when we engage and look eye to eye with our baby. It's like a love reaction. That little light you see in each other's eyes, that is that oxytocin in the brain waking up. And it feels nice. It has a positive feeling, and it's beautiful. And fortunately, I spend a lot of time looking at babies and smiling at them every day. So it's, no wonder I love my job. It's a happy thing. Oxytocin has been shown also to help regulate something called the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, HPA axis. Now, this is like a stress react. This is basically how the body reacts to stress and sets up things like norepinephrine and noradrenaline, which are kind of adrenaline, which are stress hormones, and cortisol from the adrenal glands later. So these are short-term and medium-term stress responses. Now, a lot of babies come into the world shocked, traumatized. Shock is very common in babies. It's quite a traumatic, physically, experience and physiologically, and they can be physiologically shocked. So to actually find a way to access this axis and to deregulate it, get it to settle itself down through the stimulation of oxytocin through massage, has to be a beautiful thing. So, gosh, there's so much here we can talk about. Massage has been shown actually to help in the neurodevelopment of babies. Touch is the first sense that we develop in utero is touch, where we're surrounded by warm fluid in utero. And our touch set receptors in our body develop quite early on, actually everywhere except for the top of our heads, which is quite interesting because that's the area that you don't want sensitive in childbirth. But massage and how that stimulates the nervous system through the touch response is very important, has been shown to be very important in cognitive development. Also, of course, with emotional and social development. Attentiveness. It's very important in something called cortical mapping. So what happens is the sensory system of the body defines itself by being touched. Every time you're touched, the brain records that and puts a map of that touch into your brain, into the sensory cortex of the brain. And so you get, actually in the brainstem as well, lower down in the brain. So actually there's a few different maps that happen in different parts of the brain which are stimulated by touch. And the more clear this cortical mapping, the more this growing child develops a sense of themselves in space and their boundary. So it's important in defining boundaries. And these have subtle and important effects in how we interact socially with the world. So, massive subject, but it's a wonderful thing. And the very, very important side of it in terms of bonding and in terms of this first touch is if your baby is touched in a soft, gentle, rhythmic way, it will set up an understanding within baby that touch can be calming. And that will help you as they go on and develop through childhood. They will remember the soft, rhythmic touch, which will calm them down because they have a baby memory of that. So you're setting up important pathways which come in later. And it's also important in terms of bonding when these children grow up to be young adults and they mix with life, with friends and lovers, etc., etc. It's very important to set up these patterns which are set up in calm, fluid, rhythmic ways. So, how is the best way to do this? First thing, what do you use? What kind of oils would you use? The most benign oils are the best. For example, almond oil. Almond oil is very benign, doesn't have too much of a skin reaction. Mostly skins don't react to them. You put in a little bit of calendula oil, tiny bit within it. That can be helpful to calm down heat inflammation in the skin in a newborn baby. If the child has eczema, actually using something like olive oil can be slightly more calming as well. Not always, but can. And if baby has cradle cap, coconut oil is wonderful to be massaged into the scalp. So how do we do this? This is something that you do by practice and you learn and you grow into it. So the wonderful thing, actually, one of the most beautiful things about it is it's actually calming for mum or dad or whoever's doing it to massage baby. And it also helps the confidence, partly because it stimulates that oxytocin reflex in the caregiver as well as the baby. So you're getting both people, the baby and the mum or dad, are both getting an oxytocin reaction, which further increases bonding and sets up this bonding pathway. It helps with confidence just in holding and handling baby, because actually when we first have a baby, we don't know how to handle them very well. It takes time to get used to handling. So okay, after baby 2, 3, whatever, but at the beginning it takes time to learn how to handle a baby, what they can, how they need to be held, how they need to be supported correctly. And they develop, they need to be supported a lot through, for example, their neck at the beginning. But as they grow and gain in neck strength, they don't need that and they don't want to be supported in that way. So, I will actually do, I think, a video demonstration of this. Maybe we'll do this at one of the parent support days, and we can video it with a baby or something like that. But for now, I'll just talk about some general principles to doing this. Obviously, it's nice to give baby a bath first, so they're somewhat relaxed and they're out of the bath, they're all fresh and clean, and actually their skin needs some oil on it to replenish the oils and to keep it moist and fluid. So start with baby lying on their back, maybe put on a nappy, might be easier, not necessarily, depends. But using oil, make sure the oil is warm. So you warm it in your hands, rub it in your hands, and use plenty of oil so it doesn't. Make sure you try the oil on a little bit of skin first, because most babies don't react to oils, but it's always good to make sure that they don't. Okay, in a super sensitive, because baby skins can be extremely sensitive. So lying on their back, you're quite close to them, and you start with eye contact, and then you start with resting your hands. Maybe put a little oil on. Rest your hands on the baby and just get them getting used to the feel of your hands on them, and just on their tummies. Now, tummy is an interesting thing because often babies have colic or reflux or constipation. Now, massage can be helpful or it can be irritating in those situations, so we have to be slightly careful and slightly sensitive to what is required. For example, if baby has constipation, if you slowly massage the baby's tummy, starting from the right hand side, sort of midway down the right hand side, coming up across the bottom of the ribs, very, very slowly, and then down the left flank of the tummy, and keep going in that circle, starting from the right, coming across and down, very, very slowly and rhythmical. That can stimulate the large intestine actually in constipation. But if you poke in there too much, it can irritate and send them into spasms. So it's a matter of judging how gentle you can be. Too gentle, okay, not so good. But actually, if a baby is colicky, their tummy tends to be in complete spasm. They tend to be flexing their backs. Now, they need the warmth of your hands on them. It can sometimes soften them. But if they're refluxy and they tend to extend, by stimulating this area, you can make them sick. So it's a matter of judgment and a matter of feeling out when is the right time and trying it out. What is this helping baby or is this not helping baby? Because often actually it can. And actually it's amazing how, if we don't worry about it and we just do it slightly instinctively as a parent, you'll get the feel of what feels right. We naturally do. We naturally have this. All of us have this natural ability to meet the person physically by touch in the right way if we don't think about it. So feel it out. That's the best way to do it. So resting hands, maybe start with feet. Babies love their feet massaged. It can be very calming, but don't prod the kind of reflex points because that can stimulate them. Gentle rhythmic working. The underside of their feet can sometimes be a bit sensitive. Be gentle with that. And then maybe with legs, up, gentle, wide hands, not proddy, very gentle, fluid movements. The rhythm and the fluidity are the key of this. Then onto tummy. We've talked about the tummy. Sometimes by just softly moving around the diaphragm can calm down an irritable gastroesophageal area or a colicky area. But it has to be slow, rhythmic, and if they don't like it, don't do it. That's probably the most easy way to do it. Obviously, when you're on the tummy, make sure the cord's been healed, the umbilicus area, before you prod around then. Well, actually, we don't prod at all. There are areas, like, for example, if you're doing the baby's back and shoulders can actually have quite a lot of tension in them as a remnant from the birth process when everything was a bit squashed. So, as a rule, I tend to go away from the midline, away from the spine, moving outwards with babies, through the shoulders and then downwards, the back, downwards. Not so much stimulation along the actual vertebrae, but on the muscles either side can be very tight, and you can just gently, fluidly smooth them out almost. Nice thing to do is to articulate and move the ankles, move the foot up and down, move the fingers up and down. That's very nice to do. I tend to move the hips up and down, round as well, just to keep everything as free and fluid as possible. Rhythm is really key. Head, neck can be very sensitive areas, but actually equally can be very calming, but be very gentle. Some babies don't like their heads being touched because they're holding tension in there because their heads go through a huge traumatic process in the delivery. But equally, if you're gentle and fluid with it, it can actually calm them. So it's a fine line, and you have to kind of gauge it as you go along. So we've got head, we've got neck, we've got back, we've got chest. Chest is kind of helpful as well to calm it down, especially if they're a bit mucousy. And working around, if there's blocked nose and the sinuses are all blocked up, just moving down across the nose laterally, sideways across the cheeks, downwards can be very helpful, away from the nose and down out towards the kind of bottom of the cheek jaw, that area down at sort of 45 degrees. Very gentle, rhythmic, can help move the sinuses as well. And the front of the neck, the throat, downwards, very slow, very delicate, downwards. That helps the drainage of the throat as well. So most important thing is to start gently. Don't overdo it. Don't stay in one area too long. That can overstimulate them. Be careful not to overstimulate baby, because actually if they're wanting to go to sleep, if you overdo it, it can overstimulate them. So it has to be slow, rhythmic, and actually not too much time. A little bit of time, a minute or two on each area is actually quite enough. And then come back to resting hands slowly, just resting your hands comfortably on tummy or the area you feel that baby needs it normally on the tummy or in the back. When you're doing a baby's back when they're young, you can hold them up actually. So you're holding them to you across your shoulder, and you can just gently rub downwards with the other hand, the one that's not holding them downwards. As the baby gets older and can hold their neck up, you can put them actually on their tummy, and it's very nice to do their back with them lying prone. So massage, as we've talked about, can help cognitive, emotional, social development, attentiveness, bonds, cortical mapping, oxytocin stimulation, which helps with bonding, it can decrease anxiety and the tendency towards anxiety. What's very important in babies is they're mapping out how they interrelate through their senses to the world. And if that experience is positive, it sets up a blueprint for life. So it's very, very important. And it can have subtle effects that you won't even realize happen. So I recommend every day, try and do a little bit. Even if baby is finding it difficult, just do a minute or two in an area which seems to sort of calm them. And if it's stimulating them or irritating them, don't do it. Just do what feels calming. And maybe you have to just start with rubbing their shoulders a little bit. That's fine. And build up to it. But also don't give up, because they can change. And actually, as you build up, you can actually help them to decrease it if they're stressed and colicky and irritable. Decrease some of their tension, because it's amazing how much tension some babies actually hold. And short of coming to us for a treatment, this is the best thing you can do. So anyway, there's an introduction. I'll do a video of it sometime, because I think it'll be a fun thing to do. And I wish you well, and good massagey moose time.